And the first thing that happens, usually, is the love scene.
The lights are soft, the camera's rolling, and Diane Lane leans back in her chair with the kind of smile that's made 1,000 scenes unforgettable. Half mischief, half mystery. She laughs low and smooth, the kind of laugh that makes you lean in closer just to catch the next thing she says. "You really want me to answer that?" She teases, her eyes flashing. At 60, I've learned that honesty can be a little dangerous, especially when it's about handsome men. The interviewer grins, egging her on, and she sighs. A slow, dramatic exhale that feels like the start of a story. "Look," she says, "I've spent my whole life surrounded by beautiful, talented men. Some too young, some too perfect, all just out of reach. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about it. But I'm a lady." She adds with a wink that says she's only half kidding. She crosses one leg over the other, composure effortless, voice dipping into that smoky confessional rhythm. There's a difference between fantasy and action. And trust me, the fantasy is the better part. You get to keep the mystery. You get to keep the thrill. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is stop right before you make the mistake you'll never forget. Her smile widens, knowing and dangerous. But I'll tell you this. There were 6 men who made me forget my lines, my cool, and maybe a few of my morals. I never crossed the line, she says, leaning closer. But I thought about it more than once. She sits back, eyes gleaming with the mischief of a woman who's still got plenty of stories left to tell. "So, who were they?" she says, laughing softly. "Let's just say some of Hollywood's finest made being a professional very difficult." She grins again, slow and confident. And at 60, I'm finally old enough to admit it. 1, Richard Gere. Diane's smile turns slow like she's tasting a memory. "Richard Gere," she says, the name alone enough to draw out a sigh and a laugh. You can't really work with Richard and not talk about chemistry. It's baked in the eyes, the calm, that quiet confidence that fills the room before he even says a line. She folds her hands, remembering when we started Unfaithful, he was all grace, very composed, very prepared. I thought, well, that's going to be easy. Then he looked at me during our first read-through, and I completely lost my place on the page. Not because he did anything, just because he has that stillness, that focus. You feel seen, not watched, but really seen. It's disarming. Her laugh turns warmer, and then you spend months pretending to be in love with someone like that. Long days, emotional scenes, barely any personal space, and suddenly the acting starts to feel a little too natural. There's a kind of dance that happens. A glance, a pause, a heartbeat you can hear between takes. You stay in character a little longer than you need to. Everyone on set pretends not to notice. She shakes her head. By the time we did Nights in Rodanti, it was like picking up a conversation that had never really ended. We'd tease each other between takes. He'd quote something from Unfaithful. I'd roll my eyes. And somehow the teasing made the scene softer, more human. That comfort is rare. It's what lets the audience believe what they're seeing. Her tone drops, quiet and amused. I've always said Richard has a kind of elegance that's dangerous. It sneaks up on you. You think you're fine. Then he smiles, and you forget what you were about to say. That's a professional hazard, right? She laughs again, that bright, knowing sound. So yes, working with Richard was like standing next to a warm fire. You don't mean to get close, but it just pulls you in. I behaved, she adds, still smiling. But the line between acting and feeling was very, very thin. 2. Kevin Costner. Diane laughs before she even starts. Kevin, she says, shaking her head. That man could make standing still look heroic. I remember the first day on Let Him Go. He walked onto the set, hat in hand. That low draw, that steady way of looking at you. It's not showy. It's a current that pulls you in before you realize you're moving. She settles back, her voice softening. Kevin has this quiet gravity. You feel safe around him. But there's something under the surface, a challenge, a spark. When we'd run a scene, he never pushed. He'd just listen, really listen. And it changed how you spoke the next line. That's chemistry, the kind you can't rehearse. She grins, eyes bright. He teases you without saying a word. You'll be in character thinking about your next cue, and he'll give you that half smile. Not a grin, just a hint of one. And suddenly, you're not thinking about the line anymore. You're thinking, don't blush on camera. Diane laughs again, the memory clearly still alive. There's a lot of power in stillness. Kevin can make a whole room quiet just by crossing his arms. You try acting next to that. It's like playing chess with a storm cloud. You have to stay steady or he'll steal the scene by doing absolutely nothing. Her tone turns gentle, but he's also one of the kindest people I've worked with. Completely professional, thoughtful, protective of the moment. When you're shooting something that emotional, you need that. He gives you space to be vulnerable. She glances at the interviewer, smiling. I'll say this. Working with Kevin Costner taught me that strength doesn't have to shout. Sometimes it just stands there calm and unbothered and lets you feel every beat of it. 3. Josh Brolin. Diane smiles when his name comes up, the kind of smile that carries equal parts amusement and respect. Josh, she says, he's pure energy, all instinct and grit. You feel it before he even says hello. She leans back, remembering when we worked together on Jonah Hex. He had that restless drive that makes a scene unpredictable in the best way. He's not the kind of actor who sticks to the same rhythm twice. He'll look at you a little differently, throw a new tone into a line, and suddenly the whole scene feels alive. You have to keep up, or you'll get swept into whatever storm he's building. Her laugh is quick and genuine. He has that wild streak, but it's paired with this surprising tenderness. He'll do a take that feels like thunder, and then between setups, he's cracking jokes, making sure you're okay under the heat and dust. That mix, danger and kindness, it's magnetic. She tilts her head, eyes glimmering with a quiet humor. There's an intensity about Josh that sneaks up on you. You think you're just playing a scene, and then you catch the way he's looking at you and realize you've both stopped acting for half a heartbeat. That's when you know you're in good territory. The space where trust and tension overlap. Her tone softens. He's fearless, and that kind of confidence is contagious. Working with him reminded me that acting at its best is a dance, rough around the edges, but full of rhythm. She smiles, the corners of her eyes crinkling. Josh Brolin is one of those actors who makes you better without even trying. And yes, she adds with a wink, he's exactly as compelling off camera as he is on it. 4. Matt Dillon. At the sound of his name, Diane's smile shifts. It's softer, almost nostalgic. Matt, she says, that one takes me back. We were both kids, really trying to look like adults who knew what they were doing. She laughs. He had that quiet cool that every director in the 80s wanted. The way he'd lean on a wall, not say a word, and somehow still own the frame. Meanwhile, I was trying to keep up, trying not to look like I was impressed and failing miserably. Her eyes glint with mischief. Matt was one of those actors who could make a silence feel like dialogue. You'd be standing there waiting for your cue and realize he was already telling a whole story just by looking at you. That kind of focus is rare and dangerous because it pulls you in. She grins, shaking her head. We were so young, but even then, he had presence. We'd be running lines and he'd do this half-smile thing, not on purpose, just something that happened. And suddenly I'd forget what line came next. It's funny, decades later, I can still picture that look. Her tone warms. He's grown into that same calm power he had back then. Just steadier now, more refined. Some people lose their spark with age. Matt just let his smolder mature. You can feel it even now when you see him on screen. It's still there, just quieter, like a slow burn instead of a flare. She glances at the interviewer, laughing softly. You know how some co-stars remind you of a time in your life? Matt Dillon will always be that for me, that mixture of nerves and excitement, the sense that something big was just beginning. 5. Tom Cruise. Diane laughs the moment his name comes up. Tom, she says, was all energy, pure, fearless momentum. Even back in the Outseers days, he walked onto a set like a comet. You could feel it before you saw him. She leans back, remembering. We were all so young, just trying to find our footing, and Tom already had that focus, that drive. He wasn't the biggest star in the room yet, but you could tell he was going to be. There's a kind of certainty about him that's impossible to ignore. Her smile widens. He had this way of talking, fast, full of ideas, always moving. It was contagious. You'd be exhausted at the end of a day's shoot, and he'd still be bouncing, planning the next take, the next stunt, the next everything. I admired that. It made you want to keep up. She laughs softly. He's also got this charm that sneaks up on you. It's boyish, but precise. He looks you straight in the eye when you're talking, and for a second it feels like the rest of the world's gone quiet. That kind of focus is disarming, and it works just as well off camera as it does on. Her tone turns thoughtful. I think that's what makes him so effective on screen. That combination of intensity and optimism. When he connects with you in a scene, you believe him completely. You don't act, you respond. She grins again. Tom was one of those people who made the set feel electric. You left the day a little lighter, a little faster, and definitely more awake than you'd planned to be. 6. Christopher Lambert. Diane's smile turns reflective when his name comes up. Christopher, she says, had that European mystery about him. Calm on the surface, but you always felt something happening underneath. She folds her hands as if replaying a scene. On night moves, we spent long hours together on set, working through complicated dialogue and emotional beats. He had this focus that drew you in. When he listened, he really listened. It made even the quiet moments between takes feel charged, like you were sharing a secret that didn't need words. Her laugh is soft. He's got that accent, of course. It does half the work for him. He'd ask a question or make a joke, and you'd forget what you were supposed to say next. That gentle, slightly mischievous energy. It kept everyone on their toes. She shakes her head affectionately. Christopher was all about precision. Every look, every pause had purpose. Acting with him was like playing a game of chess. Fitting considering the film, and half the fun was trying to stay one move ahead. Her eyes warm with appreciation. He was generous, though. That's what I remember most. He wanted the scene to breathe, to feel honest. There's a quiet confidence in people who don't need to dominate a moment, but can still make it come alive. Diane smiles, a little wistful now. We came from different worlds, Hollywood and Paris. But for those few months, it felt like we spoke the same cinematic language. It was mysterious, elegant, and just unpredictable enough to stay in your mind long after the camera stopped.